In this podcast episode, Tucker Carlson welcomes J.D. Vance, who shares his insights on American unity, the role of leadership in fostering division, and the current political landscape. They discuss the disconnect between political elites and rural America, the impact of Donald Trump on the Republican Party, media bias, censorship, and the challenges posed by sanctuary cities. Vance emphasizes the need for a political movement that prioritizes the interests of everyday Americans and advocates for accountability in governance. Vance expresses confidence in his campaign's success, noting that many public polls are designed to deceive. He emphasizes the importance of internal polling, which provides a more accurate picture of voter sentiment. He believes that the key to winning lies in mobilizing marginal voters who may not always show up to the polls but lean heavily towards Trump. He stresses the need for active participation in the electoral process, urging people to vote to reclaim their country. Vance addresses the political realignment occurring in America, noting a growing divide between those who support a pro-worker, pro-America agenda and the old guard establishment. He points out that high-profile endorsements from figures like Bobby Kennedy signify a shift away from traditional party lines. Vance argues that the leadership class has failed to address the needs of the American people, leading to widespread discontent. He identifies three key issues that divide the parties: foreign policy, immigration, and the outsourcing of jobs. Vance believes that a significant portion of the American populace agrees with his views on these issues, even if the leadership class does not. On the topic of immigration, Vance criticizes the leadership's approach to flooding communities with foreign laborers instead of addressing the root causes of economic decline in those areas. He argues that the focus should be on revitalizing local economies rather than importing workers. He emphasizes that the loyalty of leaders should lie with American citizens, condemning the practice of prioritizing donor interests over the needs of local communities. Reflecting on his own experiences, Vance discusses how his book, Hillbilly Elegy, was used by some leaders to dismiss the struggles of working-class Americans. He expresses frustration that rather than learning from the challenges faced by these communities, leaders often use their stories to justify neglect and disdain. He believes that the leadership class's disdain for rural Americans stems from their inability to confront their own failures and the consequences of their policies. In discussing the fall of rural America, Vance highlights the disconnect between the leadership class and the realities faced by working-class citizens. He argues that the leadership's decisions have led to economic decline and social disintegration in these communities. He believes that the leadership's failure to acknowledge their role in these issues reflects a broader moral and ethical breakdown in American politics. Throughout the conversation, Vance emphasizes the need for a political movement that genuinely represents the interests of the American people, advocating for policies that prioritize their well-being over the interests of a disconnected elite. He expresses hope that the current political realignment will lead to a more responsive and responsible leadership that addresses the needs of all citizens, particularly those in rural America. Vance argues that Donald Trump has fundamentally altered the Republican Party by prioritizing the concerns and opinions of everyday Americans. He emphasizes that Trump genuinely cares about what people think, which is a significant departure from traditional political norms. Vance illustrates this point with an anecdote about Trump discussing potential vice presidential nominees, highlighting how Trump even sought the opinion of a gardener at Mar-a-Lago. This approach demonstrates Trump's commitment to understanding the views of those he leads, making him more in tune with the electorate than most political candidates. Vance critiques the media's sudden shift in perception of Kamala Harris, who was previously viewed unfavorably by many, including Democrats. He notes that within a short period, the media has transformed her image into that of a historic statesman. He argues that this is a clear example of historical revisionism, where the media fails to hold Harris accountable for her record and instead promotes a favorable narrative. He expresses frustration that Harris avoids tough media scrutiny, contrasting her approach with that of Trump, who engages with both friendly and hostile media. Vance discusses the pervasive censorship tactics employed by the left, asserting that censorship is a fundamental aspect of their political strategy. He argues that without censorship, the left would struggle to implement their policies, such as open borders and questionable foreign policy decisions. He highlights the hypocrisy of the media, which often focuses on sensational stories while ignoring significant issues like political prosecutions and the decline of American life expectancy. He emphasizes that the left's attempts to silence dissenting voices pose a serious threat to democracy, calling for a more robust defense of free speech. Vance addresses the issue of sanctuary cities, arguing that they represent a form of rebellion against federal immigration law. He points out that these cities often receive federal funding despite their refusal to enforce immigration laws, which he believes undermines the rule of law. Vance suggests that the federal government should cut off funding to sanctuary cities as a means of enforcing immigration laws. He expresses frustration that this issue has persisted for decades without significant action from Washington. He believes that a successful administration must make the bureaucracy accountable to the American people to restore a functioning constitutional republic.